All right, welcome back, everyone. Look, if you're trying to make sense of a global landscape that feels like it's shifting beneath our feet every single day, you are in exactly the right place. In today's Explainer, we are unpacking what has been a truly unprecedented 24 hours in global news. Our theme for today is A World on the Edge, and we're going to break down 15 incredibly complex, completely interconnected developments that all just happened on July 30th, 2026. My goal here is simple, really. I want to give you a highly structured, totally unbiased look at exactly what's happening, where it's happening, and most importantly, how it all connects. We're going to strip away the noise and just rely on the data, the facts, and the timelines to give you the clearest possible picture of our current geopolitical reality.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Today we're covering 1. Middle East escalation, 2. The war in Europe, 3. Global unrest and rights, 4. Economy and tech, and finally, 5. U.S. politics and courts.
Starting with Section 1, Middle East escalation. It has been a rapid tit-for-tat.
So over the last 24 hours, military actions unfolded almost simultaneously across the entire region. Let's trace how this built up, step by step. Step 1. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval forces stopped and immobilized 3 commercial tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. This effectively reinforced a blockade that, as you can guess, immediately shook global energy markets. Then, Step 2. The Pentagon responded by launching targeted strikes against dozens of IRGC command centers and drone facilities inside Iran, specifically focused on Kesh Island. Moving to Step 3, we then saw Iranian-backed militia launch drone attacks on Saudi oil facilities and U.S. positions. This prompted joint U.S. and Saudi retaliatory strikes in Iraq. And finally, Step 4. Jordan's military air defenses had to actually step in and intercept 5 incoming Iranian ballistic missiles that were targeting U.S. airbase installations.
Now, behind all these high-level tactical maneuvers is a very real, very tragic human toll. 20. That's the number of militia fighters reported killed in Iraq during those joint U.S. and Saudi retaliatory strikes. It's just a really stark reminder of the deadly consequences of this escalating regional tension as multiple nations are basically deploying lethal force to protect their strategic interests.
Moving on to Section 2, War in Europe. These overnight exchanges have been intense. Because while the Middle East saw multi-nation skirmishes, the war in Europe surged overnight, and the scale here is just staggering. 350. That represents the combined total of projectiles launched in a massive Russian bombardment. To break that down, Russian forces launched over 70 missiles and 280 drones across Ukraine in a single night. And again, we absolutely have to note the human cost here. This overwhelming attack killed at least 8 people across Ukraine.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the immediate tactical fallout. Defensively, NATO member Poland had to actually scramble its military fighter jets to secure its eastern border airspace while that heavy Russian bombardment was happening right next door. But offensively, Ukraine didn't just hunker down. They responded by launching targeted drone strikes straight at key Russian oil refining facilities.
And, context is everything when analyzing geopolitics, and the timing here is a really critical data point. Those Ukrainian drone strikes on the Russian oil facilities, they occurred just hours after President Volodymyr Zelensky met with President Trump in Washington, D.C. We're looking purely at the chronological timeline here, but it definitely highlights the incredibly rapid pace at which international diplomacy in a capital city can precede direct battlefield action on a completely different continent.
All right, Section 3, Global Unrest and Rights. Citizens on the Edge. We're zooming out a bit from military to military conflicts to look at how localized civil unrest and human rights crises are really boiling over right now. And this is honestly one of the most tragic developments we're tracking today. In Pakistan-administered Kashmir, tens of thousands of peaceful demonstrators gathered to demand electoral reform. But security services actually opened fire on the crowds, resulting in the deaths of 30 protesters. As you can probably imagine, local authorities are now facing intense international backlash for this lethal use of force against what was a civilian demonstration.
And that kind of instability is echoing in other regions too. In Libya, growing political unrest led anti-government demonstrators to physically storm a major energy complex, which caused partial operational shutdowns. Meanwhile, over in the occupied West Bank, the United Nations just issued a severe warning regarding human rights. According to the UN's data, Israeli settler violence has reached an all-time high, with 18 Palestinians killed so far this year. When we look at these events side by side, we see a wider, undeniable theme of global instability directly affecting citizens on the ground.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, economy, and tech, the global ripple effect.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the military maneuvers and protests we just covered don't happen in a vacuum, right? Think about it. A naval blockade in Hormuz and a shutdown energy complex in Libya instantly create severe energy volatility. That restricts the global supply, which drives up global fuel prices everywhere. And that immediately puts direct pressure on the U.S. Federal Reserve as they battle inflation at home. It's a complete chain reaction.
And that dynamic directly influenced today's major financial headline, 3.6%. That is the benchmark interest rate that the Federal Reserve voted to hold steady today. But here is the crucial detail you need to understand. The vote was split. 3 policymakers officially dissented. Why? Because they actually wanted to hike rates further, pointing specifically to the Middle East energy-driven inflation we literally just talked about. It is a perfect example of global geopolitics dictating domestic economic policy.
Shifting gears to tech for a second, we have a number that represents a whole new frontier of warfare. $46.5 million. Israel just awarded this contract to an American firm for a pretty surprising reason, to influence how artificial intelligence chatbots frame the Gaza conflict. We are officially watching AI become a direct tool for global media strategy as nations seek to manage digital narratives on a massive scale.
Let's bring it home with Section 5, U.S. Politics and Courts, the lightning round.
We're wrapping up this explainer with 3 major domestic stories. Now, these are highly polarized legal and political developments, so as always, we're sticking strictly to the objective facts. First up, the number 111. Today, Dr. Anthony Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment rights exactly 111 times during congressional proceedings. In direct response to this, the Senate Homeland Security Committee has indicated they are initiating steps to hold Dr. Fauci in contempt of Congress.
Next, we actually saw a very rare moment of complete 100% bipartisan agreement in Washington. The U.S. Senate unanimously passed a resolution today formally opposing any potential presidential pardon or clemency for convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. Every single voting senator aligned on this specific measure.
And our final domestic update involves a major legal sum, $83.3 million. Today, President Donald Trump formally petitioned the United States Supreme Court to intervene and overturn the $83.3 million defamation jury award that was granted to writer E. Jean Carroll. So this effectively moves a massive high-profile civil dispute directly up to the nation's absolute highest judicial authority.
You know, we are living in an era where distance literally no longer equals separation. From a naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz to a split inflation vote at the Federal Reserve, the dominoes are lined up and they are falling fast. Today, we've traced the facts through military escalations, human rights crises, global economics, and deeply polarized political battles heading straight to the Supreme Court. So, the crucial point is, with all this happening at once, which of these global dominoes will impact your life first? Thank you so much for joining me for today's explainer, and stay curious out there.